Along Buffalo's Millionaires Row once stood the last house ever designed by one of America's most famous architects. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. In 1839, William Henry Gratwick was born in Albany, New York to modest origins. He began his working life as a tally boy, the lowest rung in a lumber yard, counting boards as they were loaded and unloaded. He found employment with Folsom and Darnold, a prominent Albany lumber firm, and married the boss's daughter, Martha Penelope Ware. By 1861, at just 22, William struck out on his own and established William H. Gratwick and Company, quickly becoming a leading lumber merchant in Albany. The real transformation came in the mid-1870s when Gratwick recognized that the lumber industry's center of gravity was shifting westward. He purchased 50 acres of property along the upper Niagara River near Tonawanda, bypassing the traditional Erie Canal shipping center at the harbor in favor of the new railroad infrastructure. In 1880, Gratwick formally incorporated what became one of the largest lumber operations in the northeastern United States, Gratwick Smith and Fryer Lumber Company. The scope of the enterprise was staggering for its era. 450 employees across all locations and 31,000 acres of pine timberland in northern Michigan. Two Michigan sawmills churned out 28 million feet of lumber annually, transported by barge to Tonawanda and forwarded by rail and canal to eastern markets. Over time, Gratwick expanded timber holdings into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Louisiana. He was also managing owner of 6 Great Lakes vessels and served as president of the Aetna Steamship Company. It was at the height of the success that he set out to build his dream house on Buffalo's Millionaires Row. To understand the Gratwick Mansion's significance, we must first acquaint ourselves with the street where it stood. Delaware Avenue was Buffalo's supreme residential address during the Gilded Age, a broad, elm-lined corridor running northward from Niagara Square to Delaware Park that concentrated more wealth per linear foot than almost any other street in the country. As the western terminus of the Erie Canal and a Great Lakes port, the city became America's greatest grain transshipment center, and by the 1880s, it handled more grain than any other American port. Lumber, steel, coal, railroads, and by the 1890s, hydroelectric power from Niagara Falls compounded the wealth. By 1900, Buffalo was the 8th largest city in America with 60 millionaires, more millionaires per capita than any other American city. The stretch of Delaware Avenue between North and Bryant Streets was described as the richest few blocks in the entire country. In the early 1880s, flush with lumber wealth, Gratwick hired Henry Hobson Richardson to design what would become the famed architect's last commission at the northwest corner of Delaware and Summer Street. The result was a Richardsonian Romanesque mansion in heavy brownstone. After Richardson's death, the house was completed in 1888 by the successor firm Shepley, Rattan, and Coolidge, with Herbert Burdett serving as the supervising architect. Critics were somewhat harsh with the house. After all, finishing the work of one of America's most celebrated architects is no light task. It was described as inferior to the other homes Richardson had designed on the street, a mishmash of styles with blown-out proportions. But Richardson was also becoming more experimental towards the end of his career, so how much liberty was taken with the facade by Burdett, we may never know. Interior accounts, however, document extraordinary craftsmanship: carved mahogany doors and paneling, stained glass windows, cedar cabinets, quartered oak and maple flooring, and imported materials throughout. We will enter the house through the porte cochere, stepping past the vestibule to arrive in the hall, clad floor to ceiling in rich wood paneling. To our left is a massive stone fireplace with intricate relief work rising from the floor to the ceiling. And all around us are antiques, trophies, and works of art announcing the status of the homeowner. As we continue to look around the hall, our eyes catch the colorful refractions of the stained glass windows dancing across the grand staircase as it gracefully sweeps up along the tower's curving walls. All this grandeur packed into the first space, and we're only getting started. Facing the grand staircase is the entrance to the dining room, continuing with rich dark woodwork and brocade. Interestingly, this room holds the only chandelier in the house, perhaps one of Burdett's alterations to the plans. We can cross the hall from the dining room to find the library directly opposite us. This room was nestled into the base of the large tower, with windows wrapping nearly 180 degrees, which would have allowed for great lighting. Alas, this is the only photo we have of the library. Finally, we'll make a complete circle to find the drawing room right next to where we entered. This space is lively, with a dramatic, simple lower mantle showing off the heavily striated stone and intricate wood carvings above on the upper mantle. The frieze and ceiling are of delicate painted plasterwork, landing somewhere between playful and elegant in appearance. Unfortunately, Gratwick was not able to enjoy the house for long. He was diagnosed with colon cancer and passed away in 1899 at 60 years old. His widow Martha continued living at 776 Delaware until her passing in 1916. In April 1917, the Gratwick heirs turned the vacant mansion over to the American Red Cross, which used it as Buffalo's wartime headquarters, housing surgical dressing manufacturing, nursing classes, French language instruction for Base Hospital 23 personnel, and packing operations that shipped 5,000 cases of supplies to France by World War I's end. The house's destruction came not from urban renewal, highway construction, or institutional expansion, but from a far more mundane cause: wealthy neighbors who wanted bigger yards. In 1919, the heirs sold the property to Frank H. Goodyear Jr. and Stephen Merrill Clement, the next-door neighbors on either side. The two men promptly demolished the Richardson masterwork and divided its land between their properties. Before the wrecking crews arrived, the house's finest elements were stripped and sold, which included mahogany doors, stained glass windows, cedar cabinets, Spanish roof tiles, and oak and maple flooring. Some of the brownstone was salvaged and reused to construct the parish house of Ascension Episcopal Church, where Richardson stone can still be seen today. The Goodyear mansion next door was itself demolished during the Depression, and the site where the Gratwick mansion stood is now a parking lot. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. Which room was your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.